Thank you for being here for our night of celebration. Here serving as the CEO of the WFCA, I've had the privilege of being a part of many inductions into the industry's Hall of Fame. But I have to admit that this one's special to me. Not because the person being inducted is any more worthy or deserving than others whose names have joined the list of men and women who have had such a profound impact on our industry. But the reality is, without the nearly 50 individuals who grace that list, our industry would be dramatically different. And so we are all in debt to them. I can't tell you everything about everyone, although I've gone back and researched so much about them. But I did want to share with you some of the uniqueness of this group. So if you don't mind, let me give you some of the things that you would maybe not know about members of the WFCA Floor Covering Industry Hall of Fame. It's made up of successful men and women, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, installers, software developers, and journalists. 3 World War II veterans, one of which is still alive, and you'll hear from him by video in just a few minutes. Many athletes, including one Sports Illustrated in their silver anniversary edition, named to the All-American football team. Somebody else you might know on that team was a man by the name of Paul Bear Bryant. There's an Einstein on the list, an immigrant who came to the U.S. with $60 and not speaking English, later sold her business for $55 million. A cattleman, an owner and president of the Atlanta Hawks, multiple authors, philanthropists, association founders, originators of CCA, Abbey, and StarNet, innovators and patent holders. We have those that were Ivy League educated and also those that were high school dropouts. We have father and son inductees and one father, son, and mother that are all in the Hall of Fame. We have a man who helped to build his family business to the largest carpet manufacturer in the world, and in the 70s, when most people are retiring, decided he'd do it again. And the owner of this amazing resort where we celebrate tonight. I think you would agree with me, that's a pretty impressive list, right? So let's do something different this time. If you are in the Floor Covering Industry Hall of Fame, would you remain seated? The rest of us would like to honor you by standing and giving you recognition. Thank you so much. You may be seated. But this one is special to me because of the personal impact that Vance had on my career and where I am and the team that he surrounded himself with. I first met Vance about 30 years ago, and in all honesty, he always seemed a bit bigger than life to me. Not because he put himself in that category. He's just one of those people who carries himself with dignity. He's the same in his professional and his personal life, and I'd love to tell you that's always the case. In my 25 years at Shaw, I had the opportunity and privilege of interacting with him in various roles as he took the lead in marketing, manufacturing and operations, sales, and then finally as the CEO of Shaw Industries. Since coming into this role, it's been on my list to make sure that he joined that hallowed list of people who are recognized for the impact that they've had on the floor covering industry. There's no question he's worthy of it. But those of you that know Vance probably won't be surprised that he did not come seeking the honor. In fact, we had to do a little coaxing to get him to be willing to be considered for this. I'd like to thank Joe Yarborough, my friend and the CEO of the Carpet and Rug Institute, for heading up Vance's nomination. When I met with Vance to discuss what tonight would be like, it became very apparent to me the reason he was hesitant. He really wanted to be sure that this recognition honored not only him, but those who invested in and molded him, those he was blessed to work with, and that inner circle, most of whom are here tonight, and finally the entire Shaw Industries family. So rather than simply sharing my insights about Vance, I wanted you to hear from those who were and continue to be impacted by his leadership. After all, it's those who know him best whose comments best describe this extraordinary leader and man. Ron Dunn and John Logue sent me the following testimonial from Alliance Flooring. Vance Bell provided stability and continuity along with innovation, vision, and change during a very critical time of transition at Shaw and through the worst recession our industry has ever experienced. He's a highly gifted, respected, and accomplished leader who asks, listens, takes ownership, and takes action. Howard Brodsky, co-CEO of CCA Global. Vance has contributed all of his energies into making the industry better. He's been instrumental in leading Shaw, and he did it with incredible ethics and values. He's been a true advocate in making this industry superior while creating advantages for consumers, retailers, and mills. And then those who continue to work with him and have been impacted by his leadership at Shaw. David Wilkerson, Corporate Director of Sustainability at Shaw, said, "He assembled an extremely talented executive management team that helped develop, plan, refine, and execute the corporate objectives." It's often said about leaders that you don't have to be the smartest one in the room. You just have to get the smartest ones in the room to be loyal to you. And they do that because they trust you. They believe in what you stand for, and you mirror what you say you stand for. Susan Ferris, VP of Marketing Communications for Shaw. Vance demonstrates the Shaw values of honesty, integrity, and passion daily. His calm, steady leadership has transformed Shaw from the world's largest carpet manufacturer to one of the top flooring companies in the world. He's navigated the ever-changing workforce landscape with a focus on culture and innovation that has resulted in Shaw continuing to an employer of choice. Vance values and respects individuals and creates an inclusive culture with our customers and associates at the center. Scott Sandlin, Senior VP of Residential Sales, said, "Vance listens and shows tremendous respect to others while understanding that the success of the enterprise is his mission. He thinks about what is best for our company, our associates, our community, and our customers, and he does it constantly. He never wavers when it comes to doing what is right." Pete Doge, President of U.S. Floors, Executive Vice President of Shaw Industries, and soon to be inducted into the Hall of Fame himself this coming January. From the first one-on-one meeting with Vance to discuss the terms of the acquisition of U.S. Floors, I knew I was going to make a deal with him. He stood firm on defending the best interests of Shaw, but made sure I was not going to feel anything less than a winner. Having worked for him for almost 3 years now, I've come to find out his management style is the exact reflection of how he negotiated with me. Firm but not overpowering, listening first rather than imposing his opinion, suggesting instead of demanding, creating the platform and providing all the support to make you successful. It does not matter what your dealings are with Vance or where you stand in the enterprise, you'll always meet the same integrity, support, and commitment to help you succeed. Tim Balcom, President of Shaw Industries. Nobody in this industry is more respected and admired than Vance Bell. Vance lives the Shaw values of honesty, integrity, and passion while adding consistency, determination, and selflessness. Vance is a determined leader who believes that business is a contact sport and wins while always playing the game the right way. Vance is a selfless leader who always exemplifies enterprise over self. Ken Jackson, CFO. I love this. In difficult times, you must have a leader who is capable of being cool under pressure, someone with steady hands on the wheel. That was Vance at his best. I'll always remember the job he did from 2006 to 2010. It showed his true character, his tenacity, and his love of the people at Shaw. And it defined for us all what true leadership is all about. How long? Even in stressful times, Vance handled himself with utmost poise, balance, and consideration of others. He was always focused on what would lead to a better outcome for our customers and for our company. Mickey Long, and I wish I could read you all of what Mickey wrote. It's phenomenal. We'll be compiling, by the way, a book of all these testimonials. So if you would like to send something to add to that book, we'll be presenting that to Vance at a later date. But this is what Mickey wrote. His leadership emerged without posturing. It emerged out of his intelligence, his veracity to learn, and his commitment to lifelong hard work. He worked on and presided over so much of the industry's great contributions to business, to our country, and to people. He has always cared deeply about these things. Maybe nobody worked more hand in hand with Vance than Randy Merritt. I remember the arguments when they were trying to determine who was the first trainee at Shaw. And I love the way that they were able to mirror each other and to support each other. You all know Randy is a retired president of Shaw Industries. He said, "What I most admired about Vance was his presence in the tough times, regardless of the situation. Vance always had the level head, the calm demeanor, the steady presence. He always stayed focused on the customer, regardless of his role in the company. He always put Shaw people first. I know he would say still today Through everything we experienced through the years, the great people of Shaw were and truly are our greatest asset and our difference maker. No one has done more to create an environment where people can achieve success, where people can feel valued, and where people love and are loyal to the company. More than anything else, this is the legacy Vance will leave at Shaw Industries. I close with this. Kathy Young, who's worked at Shaw alongside me for years, and the way she said it, it really encapsulates to me who Vance is. It's probably the way I would have said it. He is the calm that you crave in times of question and chaos. If you haven't met him, if you haven't got to know him, I hope you have that privilege. He's impacted a lot of people, not just from a business standpoint, but personally in their life. And we are so honored to make him the next inductee into the WFCA Floor Covering Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing our newest inductee, Mr. Vance Bell. I'll leave this here. I'll put it right here.
Thank you so much. For those of you who probably work with me and see me in the normal course of business and my normal business demeanor, you probably wouldn't expect. I'm kind of an emotional person, so this is really hard. I mean, this is overwhelming, and it's really humbling. But if you don't mind, I'd really like to just thank some people and talk about some people. First of all, thanks to Scott Humphrey. Scott and I have known each other a long time. I have always admired his character and his leadership, and I know he was responsible for a lot of this, and certainly tonight, and I really appreciate him. I want to say thanks to the WFCA board. Number one, for the time and the talent that you put in with WFCA. It's important to the industry, and we all appreciate it. And secondly, for your part of this nomination and this process. I've known a lot of you as customers over the years, and great relationships and great friendships, and I appreciate that. I have to recognize and thank first my wife Jenny, who has been with me for 27 years, and I can absolutely assure you that none of this would be happening if not for her. She is my most important advisor. So thank you, Jenny. Let me put that up there. I also want to recognize the other woman in my life, which that probably doesn't sound too good to Jenny or to Harlan, but Judy Ellis, who is my secretary and administrative assistant. You're not going to believe this. I've been at Shaw for 44 years. Judy has been my secretary and assistant for all but the first, I think, 9 months of that 44 years. She knows all the warts, she knows all the weaknesses, and she could have probably written a counter narrative to all this kind of stuff that was put up here before. I need to mention Bob Shaw. And some of you may say, well, isn't y'all's relationship a little bit different today than it used to be? And yeah, a lot of that is true. But I would be remiss, and I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank Bob for hiring me 44 years ago and bringing me into the industry and showing confidence in me throughout a lot of my career at Shaw. When I came to Dalton, I worked in a manufacturing plant for Cabin Craft for about 2 years. And I wanted to kind of get into sales. I came and I interviewed different people, and I had 3 offers. I could have gone into sales for Cabin Craft, a territory manager, probably somewhere in the country. I could have gone to work for Rollins Jolly at Jolly Textile, being a yarn salesman. And I had the Shaw offer. So I'm not sure how I figured that all out. It kind of looks today like a no-brainer. Dewey, I'm not sorry to mention that, but but it looked like a no-brainer. But somehow it turned out well. I made the right decision somehow. The other thing that I know and that I always maintain is this recognition is not about me. It is about all the people at Shaw Industries that surround me and support me every day. I mean, not just the dozens, several dozens that I contact and work with and all that, but the hundreds and thousands that are dedicated, that are passionate, that serve our customers every day, that produce great results. And I'm not that smart, but I know that I could accomplish nothing without great people around me. And so I want to mention a few people. I'm not going to mention everybody. I want to mention a few people, and mainly kind of because kind of when I started, 44 years ago, and within a 1 or 2 year period, there were a number of us that came into the company at the same time. I kind of call them we call them the old guard tonight because they're mostly retired or almost retired. But again, my longtime friend and partner, Randy Merritt, who was absolutely foundational to the success of Shaw Industries over decades. And he's just phenomenal. David Wilkerson, that was mentioned. I think David came in 13 months after I did. Mickey Long came in around that same period of time. And so did Julius Shaw. Now, Julius came in through a kind of a different door than the rest of us came in. And I don't know exactly where or how, but Julius is great. He was one of the guys. We had so much fun. And my point of all that is just, we worked hard. We had just great friendships. It was almost a magical time. We had tremendous trust in each other. And these guys have always had my back. And I've had theirs too. And we had a new team. I'm not going to go through and mention all of them, but a new leadership team that have the same dedication and passion that these former guys have. And I call one out of that new, Ken Jackson, who has been in our senior leadership team for 25 years. He's kind of the bridge, I guess, between the old and the new. Maybe that's what I am, the bridge between the old and the new. But these guys, I have to brag on them. They're doing great things. They're so innovative. They're going to help us take Shaw Industries to a new level, and I appreciate them. And they have my back also. Sometimes when the day-to-day rough and tumble of the business, they may not think so, but I've got their back too. I want to go back to make a point here. I want to go back to Randy and Mickey and David and all of us when we came in within the first couple of years. And Julius kind of probably knew what he was getting into, but we were 22, 24 years old. We had no idea what we were getting into. We had no idea what kind of company we were going to work for. We had no idea what kind of people we were going to work with. We had no idea what kind of industry, and we knew it was carpet, but we didn't have any idea about the industry. We didn't have any idea about the community that we were going to live in. And we all bonded so quickly. We worked so hard. We had so much fun. We had lifelong friendships. We got to work with wonderful people. And we got to be in a great industry where there is so much opportunity. And I'm really, when I get to a point, I'm really speaking to everybody in the room. It's such a great industry and such opportunity for people. And I'm going to tell you something. In our wildest dreams, we couldn't have written the script for how it turned out. Couldn't have written the script. And I think that's true for a lot of people in this room, that this industry has been so good to. And my point is, particularly if you're going to be in the industry for the next decade or two, take care of it. Grow this industry responsibly. Grow it profitably. Make it healthy for the long term. Make sure we keep our credibility and our integrity with our customers and our end users. And run your businesses, whether you're manufacturers, competitors, retailers, run your businesses where you can attract great talent into this industry. Because I want the next group of 22 to 24-year-olds that come into this industry that have the same opportunity, the same script, and the same opportunities that many of us had because of this industry. This is overwhelming. I appreciate the recognition, and I'm honored by your presence, every single one of you. Thank you so much.
60 years is a long time, and a lot's happened in the industry during that time. A lot's happened in our world. Changes are dramatic. Many changes. It escalates in the last 10 years. But when you think about organizations and entities, they're defined by their past, they're identified by their present, and they're really inspired by their vision for the future. So I want to give you a little bit of all this, not very little. I promise this won't be long, but I want you to understand not only who we are, why things like the Hall of Fame are so important to us, but the impact that we long to have going forward, and why your part is so important, why your voice is so important to us. When you think about the past of the WFCA, you have to recognize, as Vance just has, those who paved the way for you. And many of you here tonight are past chairmen and chairwomen of the WFCA. If you have served in a chairman capacity with the WFCA, would you stand, please? Thank you so much, guys. Terrific group of people, and they haven't stopped. I mean, they're still pouring themselves back into the WFCA and the industry. I had the privilege several years ago of meeting a gentleman who is the only surviving person who was a chairman of both the WFCA, which used to be the Western Floor Covering Association, and the AFA. And when they merged together, he had served as president of both. You saw his picture up here at the end of Vance's presentation. His name is Paul Pumphrey. Paul is 94 years old and has a brain like a steel trap. I mean, it's amazing what he remembers. And so physically, he couldn't be here today. I really wish he could. I flew out to Pueblo, Colorado, and spent some time interviewing him. And I wanted you to hear some of Paul's comments as he shared with you a little bit of the history.
Sherwood Sitz was an attorney that represented management when it came to labor relations on floor covering oriented people. And so he had dealers, contractors, and other people that were on the management side that he represented and had been doing for some time. WFCA basically is Sherwood Sitz's baby. It was his idea to, I do represent these people, but this is, I could get together and have a convention and have some people come in and actually do something where it would be, other people could enjoy the facts of life as far as floor covering is concerned. That was in 1959, and they did set the first convention seminar. It always said convention/seminar at the Riviera Hotel in Las Vegas for October the next year. Actually, it was a year and a half from 59. It was in 1961. Sherwood Sitz was a very shrewd, very intriguing, in my mind, individual. I really never liked the guy a whole lot, but I certainly had a lot of respect for his acuity in being able to do something. In order to make this organization survive even, we need to have a trade show. Well, why would a trade show do anything? Well, a lot of people aren't aware of it, but floor covering markets used to be very, very important. They had them in, the biggest one, of course, was in Chicago. Those things were dwindling in importance for some reason, and the timing of WFCA being able to grab this thing and do something is in 1985, as I recall. In fact, I was one of the ones that even made the motion, or at least seconded the motion, that we go ahead and proceed to get a floor covering trade show. How the name came up, I'm not completely certain, whether it did right at that time or whether it did after we decided to move with the thing. I just totally enjoyed the camaraderie that existed in those meetings, the cross-polarization that we got with being able to do things. My wife at the time, Marie, and I sometimes would drive to these things, and we'd go and stop and look at stores in different towns just to pick up, or we might know the people, we might not know the people. But and along that same line, we even got some people to join because they didn't know anything about the organization, which is just kind of a sidebar to the thing. But through the years, it just became increasingly important to me to attend the convention seminars, because not only them, the trips on the way and all that, but one of the most important things of membership in something like this is how you can compare notes with your contemporaries. Actually, as far as what I would like to see the future of it, I guess just more of the same, of providing the benefits that are desirable at the particular time that we're talking about, and to make certain that there's always, as much as we can, that there's always a need for our product, our services. And if there's always a need, then that means there's always going to be someone that's got to fill those needs. And if you can represent, I say you, if WFCA can represent those people in an honorable manner, what the heck? That's the best of both worlds. It's good for the member, it's good for the public.
I love that man. We've become dear friends. He's one of my best friends, and maybe it's because our names are so close. We're probably kin somewhere down the line. But a side note, we found out a few years ago that Paul had never been to see the World War II memorial. He was a veteran of World War II, was in the Merchant Marine, and so we, the WFCA, footed the bill to send he and his wife to see the World War II memorial. In doing so, I called the head of the Merchant Marine and said, you know, we're coming up and we're bringing Paul Pumphrey. And they said, spell his last name? And I did, and they said, he has 13 medals coming to him. He had no idea. So the head of the Merchant Marine for the United States came out and presented him a plaque. He's never stood taller. He can't stand tall right now, but he was able to that day, and just a phenomenal guy. And he represents so many of our past chairmen and presidents who've sacrificed something to allow us to exist today. I wanted to read to you just a little bit of a testimonial from my dear friend Mitchell Brown, and he was sharing with me some of the insight in the background, and I think it will help you better understand why we are and why our solid foundation is existing today. He said, in the latter part of 1985, my father, Von Brown, informed me that I had been invited to become a board member of the WFCA, at that time, again, the Western Floor Covering Association. He was on the WFCA board and had previously served as president in 1973. The next meeting was to be held in San Antonio in February of 1986. I was extremely excited to not only be a part of the WFCA family, but also attend the meeting with my best friend, my dad. However, in January of 1986, he passed away. My mother, Elizabeth, was invited to come to San Antonio at my dad's place. And back then, everyone paid all of their own expenses, so it wasn't a hardship on the association. I was very excited to be a board member of the WFCA, and things were totally different in the mid and late 80s compared to today. We had only one staff member, Lou Bell, and it was a struggle just to make payroll. So in that first meeting in San Antonio, a request was made to the board members to contribute $500 each to keep the association alive. Sometimes we don't think about the little decisions we make and the lasting impact. Had they opted not to put the $500 in the kitty right there, nights like tonight wouldn't be possible. People who had sacrificed to make this industry better wouldn't be recognized. Change and focus on the needs of professional flooring dealers would not be there. But thank you to Mitchell and to Dennis Blake, who was also at that meeting, and so many others who have sacrificed along the way. Our foundation is solid because of the sacrifice of the past. but that's the past. One of my favorite verses says that any man who puts his hand to a plowshare and looks back over his shoulder can't get in the kingdom. Not really a big religious theme there, but what it does say is it's very difficult to plow in a straight line forward if you're looking back over your shoulder. You've got to be focused ahead. You have to be looking at where you want to go. And so let me take you to our present. I had a lot of counsel from people at Shaw when I was considered for this position. In fact, I remember when Jay Copelson called me and said, we're looking for somebody to be the CEO of the World Floor Covering Association. And I said, well, I don't know of anybody, but I'll keep my ear to the ground. And he said, no, we're thinking about you. And I literally laughed at him. And I said, man, I've got it made. I was over the Shaw Flooring Network, an elite group of customers with Shaw, and I had a great team around me and had no desire to go anywhere. And Jay would not quit talking. And so I said, okay, listen, would you just send me the job description? And he said, yeah, I will. That's the only way I got him off the phone. A few days earlier, I had made a list of things I wanted to accomplish in my life before I retired. From a professional standpoint, I'm a list person. I got the job description in from Jay, and 9 of the 10 things on my list were on the front page of the job description. I remember calling Randy Merritt almost immediately and going, Randy, what do I do? And Randy helped counsel me through actually that whole process. I am where I am because there are a lot of people that believed in me. I don't know why. I never thought that this would happen, but one of the first things I felt like we needed to do was define who we were. Who is the WFCA? At that time, most of you would have recognized us as the organization that started Surfaces, right? In fact, many people today still think that we do, even though we sold that show many years ago. That's how we were identified in the past. So we got together with the executive committee of the WFCA at that first meeting. Nick, I see you. I remember you being there, and Harold and many others. And we decided we had to define who we were and really focus in on that. I remember a story about Yogi Berra and Hank Aaron. Yogi Berra, you remember, was catcher for the Yankees, and he used to love talking to people when they get up to bat. And Hank Aaron gets up to bat, and he says, Hank, you got the bat turned the wrong way. Aaron didn't react or respond in any way, and he said, you got to turn it where the label's up so you can read it. Aaron never acknowledged him at all, but hit the ball out of the park. He came around and hit home base. He said, I'm not here to read. He knew what his purpose was, and he was there for it. Our purpose statement says this: we exist to ensure the success and profitability of professional flooring dealers and to represent their common interest. It's simple, but it's difficult because we can't do that alone. We need you with us. We need your voice. We need your commitment to help us do good. We began to identify that group because we realized if we can help professional flooring dealers, it helps the whole industry. It really is the hub that allows our industry to exist. Today, we continue to broaden our influence by investing and bringing under our umbrella, if you will, other entities that really focus on that purpose statement of ensuring success and profitability. FCB2B is now under the umbrella of the WFCA. The leadership of the Floor Covering Industry Foundation, I see Tim Balcom and many others who serve a role in that. Pete serves a role in that. That's an organization that is the feel-good of everything that we do. An organization that allows us to help people who have committed their life to this industry and face some type of financial burden because of catastrophic illness. And that now functions with Andrea's help under the umbrella of the WFCA. Many people talked about the installation challenges out there, and we decided that we didn't want to talk about it. We wanted to show that we were committed to solving it, realizing that if we could solve it, we help not only professional flooring dealers, but the industry as a whole. I met with Robert Varden. I met with Jim and Jane Walker. I'm so honored to have them here today, and thank you for your guidance and your wisdom in creating an organization to help installers be all that they can be. If we've ever felt the need for what you did, it is in the time that we face today. And we brought key assets of the Certified Flooring Installers International under the umbrella of the WFCA. We helped establish the Floor Covering Leadership Council so associations didn't have to work independently to solve the challenges and crises of the industry, but we could combine our efforts so that our voice would be stronger, so that we would be heard. Lobbying efforts. Jeff King and I, some of the best times in my job are when Jeff and I go to Washington, D.C. We tend to lean a little differently politically, which is so much fun because we just play off of each other when we have these meetings, but we are heard so differently than everybody else because we go in representing you. In fact, one of the main reasons that our membership is so important to us is we often get the question, how many people do you represent? Isn't it funny they hear you differently based on your answer? But we represent the moms and pops, the independent flooring retailers, the commercial dealers, and so each of those appears as a vote to them. We don't appear as an entity like Walmart. We represent you, and very honored to do so. We're probably most known today for something we call the trade scholarship. Our desire to give back after the sale of the show and to help this industry from an educational standpoint so that when you join the WFCA, and many of you manufacturers here probably do not realize this, but according to our bylaws, the fees that you pay, a great portion of the fees that you pay to be a member of the WFCA have to be delivered through trade scholarship to help people be better at what they do in this industry. That's what we're all about. Primarily known for our ownership of the installation crisis and things we're doing to try to address that, like magnetic building solutions, who you've probably seen recently. I just want to reiterate that, as Vance noted, success doesn't come because of your ability to stand up and say, it's me. It really becomes part of the team's focus. And we have an amazing team. We have a very small team at the WFCA, but their whole focus is your success, whether you're manufacturer, installer, inspector, whatever it may be. Every day they get to come to work to help solve your problems. If you're part of the staff of the WFCA in any portion or entity, would you please stand? It's an amazing group, and I'm honored to lead them. Vance said it in his thank you, but we have a job, and that's our job. We get paid to do it, but our board doesn't get paid to do it. In fact, they have a full-time job, more than a full-time job for many of them, and yet they commit their time freely and sacrifice to be at events like this week. We will follow the meeting tonight with a full board meeting tomorrow. They do that for one reason. They believe that together we're better. That when we combine our voices to solve any issue, there's a greater opportunity for success. If you're part of the board of the WFCA, would you stand, please? Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It's a great group. In the future, we will continue to be the voice of the industry, and we will hearken our voice to the needs of professional flooring dealers, as we believe that that benefits everybody across the board. We'll do that to issues that are impacting the industry. Listen, if an association is to exist, we're here to solve problems. So we look at the problems that are impacting the success of the industry and we say, how do we solve it? Can we do it alone? Do we need to involve other parties? How do we get them involved? Often it's like herding cats. It's almost like trying to get y'all to come from that building over there to this building tonight. We get focused on what we're doing, and that's where we give our attention. But guys, there's so much more we can do when we work together. So much more. When it's not about engineered floors and Mohawk or Shaw or Dixie or anybody, it's about the better good for the industry. A rising tide truly does raise all ships. We're not an enemy to anybody. We don't desire to hurt anybody, but provide resources that help anybody who has a need. Some of the things you'll see us focused on going forward are buying cycles. So the shift from soft surface to hard surface has had a great impact on the consumer base. If you think about it, we used to look at 5 to 7 years for a repurchase, no longer. Now, guys, that's not a good or a bad, but in the 80s, about 76% of all flooring, according to Larry Nagel, also a Hall of Fame member, was soft surface. Today, that's 41%. In itself, again, neither good nor bad, but how we respond to it is good or bad, right? And that's why you're seeing so much diversification among manufacturers as we seek to do other things to meet the need of the consumer. The ever-changing generational buying habits, as we see that millennials don't purchase. I don't know if you're aware of this. I was meeting with a large home builder recently, and they shared this statistic with me. Did you know that 3 of the buying generations, so there are 5 buying generations today, 3 of the 5 are beginning to prefer rental housing over purchasing a house? But not multifamily rental housing. Individual, single-standing rental housing. That's different, right? And so because of that difference, we have to adjust. We have to adapt to that. And part of that is in the way that we manufacture. It's in the way that we sell. It's in the way that we train and educate. By far, the thing that you will see us take a hold of and scream about the most is the installation crisis. I get knocked all the time for calling it a crisis. It's a crisis. Listen, when they tell you the hurricane's coming, it's a crisis. It's not a crisis when it hits. It's a crisis when you see it coming. And we have been able to dodge it many times over the last 60 years because of economic downturns. But the reality is I don't think any of us want to hope for an economic downturn to help us with the installation crisis. It's a problem we can't solve. Not the WFCA, but with you. Together we can. We've got to change perspective. I mean, I want installers to be able to go to a neighborhood party and scream out, I'm an installer, and not be ashamed by that. Why is it in other countries they're called artisans and craftsmen and we call them installers? We've got to give pride to the profession. We've got to train to that pride. We've got to educate. We've got to get a quality of installation and not just a quantity, but we need people and we need them badly. And we find them by working together. You may be aware that the Fort Career Leadership Council did some research and we helped to fund that research. And the Blackstone Group is the one that did that research. They found out that over the next 10 years, we will be up to 6,000 installers shy every year for the next 10 years. Take that back 10 years and imagine where we are right now. We have a problem. And it's a problem, again, that we can solve together. We have to recruit new bodies. We have to elevate the perception of the trade. We have to stop shaming people that don't get a college degree. How many of you work in some capacity outside of your degree? Look around the room. Thank you for joining the 70% of people who work outside of their degree. I've got a great mechanic. The last question I ask him is, where did he get his degree? I want to know if he can fix my car. And we've got to help people understand there is pride in tradesmen and craftsmanship. And we've got to do that at an earlier age. We have to implement a curriculum that can be administered in trade schools. We have to create products that make people's choice and ability to change easier. We have to pay installers a fair wage. All of those things are vitally important as we go forward. We need a solution to all those problems, but the reality is, guys, from where I stand and from what I've seen, we often look somewhere else for the solution until we feel the pain. And I'm telling you, we don't have to wait. That together we can. That our voice can be louder, and it can echo stronger, and we can accomplish what we can't accomplish alone. I recently heard a story of a gentleman who in the late 1800s, his name was Ali Hafed. Ali was a Persian farmer. He had a large house and gardens, a very wealthy man. One day a friend was traveling through and came to meet with him, and he told him about diamonds. He said, man, people are making money in diamonds, and it's amazing. And if you want to really be rich, you need diamonds. Ali didn't sleep that night. It haunted him. He wanted more than what he had. So he sold everything. True story. Sold everything that he had and went in search of diamonds. Ali Hafed lost everything and committed suicide. The man who bought his farm, however, was one day out walking and looked down into a stream and saw something glistening back at him that had all the hues of the rainbow. On Ali Hafed's farm is now the largest diamond mine ever discovered, the Golconda mine. What if one day we find out that the answer we longed for was right among us? That if we could simply join hands and tackle these issues, we really could. So many of you know that I went to college and did not graduate, and my major is not what I use today. I was a vocal performance major. I had the blessing of being part of a show choir that competed my freshman year in college, and we were the third best show choir in the nation. We traveled all over the country. There was a song that we used to do that I would often hear, even in my years at Shaw, echo in my mind. It talked about the courage of a person taking that initial step and doing something that really mattered, that can make a difference. I'm probably the only person you will ever hear talk about Barry Manilow in a leadership talk. And the courage it took to just admit that is pretty vast. But there was a song that Barry Manilow did that the words said, just one voice singing in the darkness. All it takes is one voice singing so they hear what's on. Was something like this. Just one voice singing in the darkness. All it takes is one voice singing so they hear what's on your mind. And when you look around, you'll find there's more than one voice singing in the darkness, joining with your one voice. Each and every note another octave, hands are joined and fears unlocked. If only one voice would start out on its own, it takes just one voice facing the unknown, and then that one voice would never be alone. It takes that one voice, just one voice, singing in the darkness, joining with your one voice. Shout it out and let it ring. Just one voice. It takes that one voice, and everyone will sing. We hope you. I've never seen those guys before in my life. Join us for the next 60 years. Combine your voice with ours. Together we can do wonderful, amazing things. Vance, congratulations on an honor, well deserved. Enjoy the rest of your evening. God bless.